The great arena stretched beyond what any human eye could comprehend, its crystalline walls reaching into infinity. Massive beings of pure energy floated in the void above, their forms shifting between geometric patterns and writhing tentacles of light. These were the architects, ancient cosmic entities who had witnessed the birth and death of countless galaxies. At the center of the arena stood a small figure that seemed impossibly fragile against the vastness surrounding her. 8-year-old Maya Chen clutched her stuffed rabbit close to her chest, her dark eyes wide with terror as she stared up at the towering beings above. Her school uniform was torn and dirty from when the cosmic portal had ripped her away from the playground during recess. "Behold!" thundered the voice of Zephyros, the eldest of the architects, his words reverberating through dimensions. "Another specimen from the diseased world called Earth. This species spreads like a plague across their planet, consuming and destroying without thought for consequence." The other architects murmured their agreement, their forms pulsing with disapproval. For eons, they had watched humanity's expansion with growing disgust. Wars, pollution, extinction of other species, the relentless march of technology without wisdom. They had decided that humanity was a cancer that needed to be cut out before it could spread to other worlds. "We have brought this young one to face our judgment," continued Zephyros. "If she can survive what we present to her, perhaps her species deserves to continue existing. If not, we shall cleanse the earth of human presence forever." Maya's lip trembled as she tried to understand the alien words that somehow translated themselves directly into her mind. She thought of her parents, probably searching frantically for her right now. She thought of her little brother Tommy, who would be coming home from kindergarten to find his big sister gone. "I want to go home," she whispered, her voice barely audible in the vast space. The architects paid no attention to her plea. Instead, reality began to shift around her. The crystalline floor dissolved, replaced by rough stone and ancient pillars. The air grew thick and humid, filled with the scent of something wild and predatory. "You will face the Vorthak," announced another architect, her voice like the sound of dying stars. "This creature has devoured the champions of 1,000 worlds. It knows no mercy, no compassion, only hunger. If you can survive until the twin suns set on this trial ground, you may yet prove your species worthy." From the shadows between the pillars came a sound that made Maya's blood freeze. It was a growl, deep and rumbling, filled with an intelligence that spoke of cunning and cruelty. The Vorthak emerged slowly, savoring the moment of reveal. The creature stood 12 feet tall at its shoulders, its body covered in midnight black fur that seemed to absorb light itself. Its head was leonine but wrong, with 6 eyes arranged in 2 rows across its skull, each one glowing with malevolent amber fire. Massive claws, each as long as Maya's arm, scraped against the stone as it moved. Its tail was barbed with bone spikes that dripped with paralytic venom. But it was the creature's mouth that truly terrified her. When the Vorthak opened its jaws, row upon row of crystalline teeth were revealed, each one sharp enough to slice through titanium. The beast had evolved on a world where mercy was weakness, where only the most ruthless predators survived. The Vorthak had killed hundreds of beings brought before the architects. Warriors with energy weapons, telepathic entities who could move mountains with thought, creatures of living metal that seemed indestructible. All had fallen to its savage intelligence and relentless hunger. Now it faced a small human child with nothing but a stuffed toy. The creature circled her slowly, its 6 eyes never blinking as they studied every detail of its prey. It had learned to read fear, to taste the despair that made its victims easier to break. But something about this small being puzzled it. Yes, she was afraid, trembling like a leaf in a storm wind. But underneath that fear, the Vorthak sensed something else, something it had never encountered before. Maya backed against one of the stone pillars, her heart hammering so hard she thought it might burst. The creature was so much bigger than anything she had ever imagined, so much more terrible than the monsters in her nightmares. But as she pressed against the cold stone, she felt something shift inside her chest. She thought about her grandmother's stories, tales of brave people who stood up to bullies even when they were scared. She thought about her father, who worked double shifts at the factory so she could have piano lessons. She thought about her mother, who volunteered at the animal shelter even though she was allergic to cats because she believed every living thing deserved kindness. The Vorthak paused in its circling, confused by what it was sensing. This small prey's fear was transforming into something else, something that made the ancient predator's instincts scream warnings. Maya slowly stood up straighter, still clutching her stuffed rabbit. Her voice was small but steady when she spoke. "My name is Maya Chen," she said to the creature. "I'm 8 years old. I don't know why you want to hurt me, but I'm not going to make it easy for you." The Vorthak tilted its massive head, studying this unprecedented response. In all its centuries of existence, no prey had ever introduced themselves to it. They screamed, they ran, they begged, they fought with weapons and powers beyond imagining. But none had ever simply stated their name with quiet dignity. Above them, the architects watched with growing interest. This was not how these trials typically proceeded. The great beast took a step closer, its claws leaving deep gouges in the stone floor. Maya flinched but held her ground, and in that moment, something extraordinary happened. The creature caught sight of the torn fabric on her school uniform, saw how carefully she cradled her stuffed rabbit despite her terror. The Vorthak had been bred for killing, trained to see only prey and predator. But somewhere in its ancient mind, a memory stirred. Long ago, before the architects had claimed it, the Vorthak had been young itself. It remembered being small and vulnerable, remembered how terrifying the world had seemed. The creature stopped its advance, confusion clouding its amber eyes. This was wrong. This child should be running, should be crying for mercy that would never come. Instead, she stood there watching it with eyes that held not hatred, but something the Vorthak had no name for. Maya saw the hesitation and took a tiny step forward. Every instinct screamed at her to run, but something deeper told her this moment was important beyond anything she could understand. "Are you hurt?" she asked softly, noticing for the first time the old scars that crisscrossed the creature's dark hide. "You look sad." The words hit the Vorthak like a physical blow. Sad. In all its existence, no one had ever wondered if it felt sadness. It had been called monster, demon, death incarnate, but never had anyone looked at its battle-scarred form and seen pain. The cosmic arena fell silent, except for the sound of Maya's steady breathing and the distant hum of the architect's energy forms. The twin suns overhead cast long shadows between the ancient pillars, and time seemed suspended in this moment of impossible connection. The Vorthak lowered its massive head, and for the first time in centuries, something other than hunger flickered in its 6 amber eyes. Above them, the architects leaned forward in their dimensional space, suddenly uncertain about what they were witnessing. This was supposed to be a simple demonstration of human weakness, a final proof that the species deserved extinction. Instead, they were seeing something that challenged everything they thought they knew about the small beings from Earth. The trial had only just begun, but already, the outcome was becoming far from certain. The silence stretched between Maya and the Vorthak like a bridge neither had expected to cross. Above them, the architects watched with growing unease as their perfect killing machine remained motionless, its massive head lowered toward the small human child. Zephyros, eldest of the cosmic beings, pulsed with irritation. The creature hesitates. Perhaps it requires motivation. With a thought, He sent waves of telepathic commands toward the Vorthak, flooding its mind with images of violence and hunger. The great beast's head snapped up, its eyes blazing brighter as the mental assault hit. It let out a roar that shook the ancient pillars, and for a moment, Maya thought her brief reprieve was over. The creature's claws extended fully, scraping deep furrows in the stone as it fought against the alien influence invading its thoughts. But Maya had seen something in those amber eyes before the architect's interference, and she refused to let fear reclaim her completely. As the Vorthak writhed in mental agony, she did something that defied all logic and self-preservation. She walked toward it. "Stop hurting him," Maya called up to the floating entities above, her young voice carrying with surprising strength. "Can't you see he doesn't want to fight me?" The architects recoiled in shock. No creature had ever spoken in defense of the Vorthak. The child's words carried an emotional resonance they had not anticipated, one that seemed to cut through their telepathic control like a blade. The Vorthak's struggling ceased abruptly. Through its pain, it heard the impossible thing the small human had done. She had called it him rather than it. She had spoken as if its feelings mattered. And most incredibly of all, she was walking closer rather than running away. Maya stopped just beyond reach of the creature's claws and sat down cross-legged on the cold stone, placing her stuffed rabbit in her lap. "My mom says that when someone's hurting, sometimes the best thing you can do is just sit with them," she said quietly. The Vorthak stared at her in complete bewilderment. In its long existence, it had known only two kinds of interactions: the commands of the architects and the terror of its prey. This small being fit neither category, and its presence created a confusion that actually helped push back the alien voices in its head. "I had a cat once," Maya continued, her voice conversational despite the surreal circumstances. "His name was Whiskers, and he was really mean to everyone except me. Mom said it was because people had been cruel to him before we adopted him from the shelter. Maybe that's why you seem so angry too." The comparison struck the Vorthak like lightning. It had never considered that its rage might stem from something other than its nature. The architects had found it as a cub on a dead world, the last of its kind, and had shaped it through pain and isolation into their perfect weapon. It had never known kindness, never experienced gentleness, never had anyone simply sit with it without agenda. Maya noticed the creature's posture beginning to relax, its claws retracting slightly. Emboldened, she continued talking in the same calm tone she used to soothe her little brother when he had nightmares. "The thing about Whiskers was that once he trusted you, he was the most loyal friend you could imagine. He would purr so loud you could hear him from the next room, and he always knew when I was sad." She looked up at the Vorthak's 6 eyes, each one focused intently on her face. "I think you might be like that too, under all this scary stuff they made you do." Above them, the architects were becoming increasingly agitated. Their telepathic commands were growing weaker, somehow dampened by the strange energy emanating from the interaction below. Zephyros attempted to reassert control, but found his mental probe sliding off something he had never encountered before. Human empathy, it turned out, was far more powerful than they had calculated. The Vorthak slowly lowered itself to the ground, bringing its massive head closer to Maya's level. Up close, she could see that its amber eyes held depths of intelligence and pain that spoke of eons of suffering. Scars covered its muzzle, some fresh, others ancient, telling stories of countless battles and endless torment. "They hurt you a lot, didn't they?" Maya whispered, and the creature's entire body shuddered at the unexpected compassion in her words. For the first time in its existence, the Vorthak made a sound that wasn't a roar or a growl. It was barely audible, a soft whine that spoke of vulnerability so profound it shocked both the creature and the watching cosmic entities. Maya slowly reached out her hand, stopping just short of touching the creature's scarred muzzle. "It's okay," she said softly. "I won't hurt you. I promise." The Vorthak stared at her small hand, trembling with an emotion it had no name for. No one had ever promised not to hurt it. Pain had been its constant companion for so long that the absence of threat felt like stepping into an alien dimension. Carefully, moving with infinite delicacy despite its massive size, the creature extended its head until its nose barely touched Maya's palm. The contact was electric, sending waves of sensation through both beings. For Maya, it was like touching starlight made solid, ancient and wild and beautiful despite its fearsome appearance. For the Vorthak, it was the first gentle touch it had ever known. The moment of contact created something the architects had not foreseen. The bond between human and creature began to resonate at frequencies that interfered with the cosmic being's control over their arena. Reality itself seemed to shift, responding to the unprecedented connection forming below. "Impossible," breathed another architect, her voice filled with something approaching fear. "The human child is disrupting our dimensional matrix. How is this occurring?" Zephyros pulsed with dark energy, preparing to intervene directly. But as he gathered his power, something extraordinary happened in the arena below. Maya had begun to sing. It was a simple song, one her grandmother had taught her about a little bird that brought hope to a dark forest. Her voice was clear and sweet, carrying across the stone pillars with a purity that seemed to cleanse the very air. The Vorthak's eyes widened in wonder as the melody washed over it, each note healing wounds in its spirit that it hadn't even known existed. The creature had heard many sounds in its long life: the screams of its victims, the commands of its masters, the silence of empty worlds. But music was something entirely new, and the beauty of it brought tears to its amber eyes. As Maya sang, she began to stroke the creature's massive head, her small fingers gentle against its scarred hide. The Vorthak closed its eyes, and for the first time in its existence, felt something approaching peace. The architects watched in growing alarm as their perfect weapon transformed before their cosmic senses. The rage that had defined the creature for millennia was dissolving, replaced by something they had never seen before in their eons of existence. The Vorthak was learning to love. And in that moment, as Maya's song filled the arena with impossible beauty, and her touch healed wounds that had festered for eons, the cosmic beings realized they had made a terrible miscalculation. They had thought to demonstrate humanity's weakness by pitting a child against their greatest predator. Instead, they had discovered something far more dangerous to their plans than any weapon or army. They had discovered the human heart and its power to transform even the most broken beings through simple, unconditional compassion. The twin suns continued their journey across the alien sky, but the trial was no longer proceeding according to the architect's ancient design. Something new was being born in the arena below, something that would challenge the very foundations of their cosmic order. Maya finished her song and looked up at the watching entities, her eyes bright with a determination that belied her young age. "He doesn't want to fight anymore," she announced, "and neither do I. So if you want to hurt Earth, you'll have to find another way, because we're not going to help you do it." The Vorthak lifted its great head and fixed all 6 of its amber eyes on the architects above. But now, instead of the mindless hunger they had cultivated for so long, those eyes burned with something far more dangerous. They burned with purpose and loyalty, and the fierce protectiveness of a creature that had finally found something worth defending. The trial was about to enter its final, most unexpected phase. The cosmic arena trembled as the architects felt something they had not experienced in eons: uncertainty. Their perfect plan was unraveling before their ancient eyes, rewritten by the actions of a single human child and her impossible bond with their most deadly creation. Zephyros gathered his cosmic power, reality bending around his massive form, as he prepared to intervene directly. Enough of this aberration. The trial ends now, and with it, both the child and the defective weapon. But as he focused his attention downward, preparing to unleash forces that could shatter planets, the Vorthak moved with speed that defied its massive size. In one fluid motion, it placed itself between Maya and the descending cosmic wrath, its obsidian hide beginning to glow with an inner fire that none of the architects had ever seen before. "You will not touch her," the creature spoke, its voice carrying across dimensions for the first time in its existence. The words rang with such conviction that the very fabric of space-time shuddered in response. The architects recoiled in shock. The Vorthak had never spoken before, never shown independence beyond basic hunting instincts. Now it stood defiant against its creators, its 6 amber eyes blazing with protective fury. Maya placed her small hand on the creature's leg, feeling the tremor of power running through its massive frame. "It's okay," she whispered up to her unlikely protector. "We'll face whatever comes together." The simple trust in her words sent waves of transformation through the Vorthak's being. For so long it had been alone, a weapon without purpose beyond destruction. Now it had something precious to protect, someone who saw past its fearsome exterior to the broken soul beneath. But the bond between them was creating effects that reached far beyond the arena. Across the cosmos, something unprecedented was happening. On Earth, every human being suddenly paused in their daily activities as a warmth they couldn't explain filled their hearts. Children stopped crying. Enemies put down their weapons for just a moment, and for one brief instant, the entire species felt connected by threads of compassion they couldn't see but somehow understood. The architects sensed this cosmic shift and realized with growing horror what was occurring. The child's empathy wasn't just affecting their weapon. It was somehow amplifying and broadcasting the best aspects of humanity across space and time. Every act of kindness, every moment of sacrifice, every instance of love conquering fear was resonating through dimensions, creating a symphony of compassion that challenged their fundamental beliefs about the species they had condemned. "This cannot be," whispered another architect, her energy form flickering with uncertainty. "We have observed them for millennia. They are violent, destructive, selfish creatures who poison everything they touch." Maya heard the cosmic being's words and felt a flash of anger that surprised her with its intensity. "That's not true," she called out, her young voice carrying with unexpected power. "Yes, some humans do bad things, but that doesn't mean we're all bad. My teacher says that every person has light and darkness inside them, and every day we get to choose which one we feed." She stood up, still keeping one hand on the Vorthak's leg, and faced the towering entities above. "You only watched the bad parts. You didn't see my neighbor, Mrs. Patterson, who brings soup to sick people even though she's 90 years old. You didn't see my dad working extra hours so he could donate to the children's hospital. You didn't see my little brother sharing his lunch with kids who forgot theirs." With each example, the arena filled with brighter light, as if her words were calling forth the very memories she described. The architects found themselves seeing human experiences they had deliberately ignored, acts of heroism without reward, kindness between strangers, love that persisted despite all obstacles. You didn't see my mom staying up all night with rescue animals, or my grandmother teaching me that courage isn't about not being scared. It's about doing the right thing, even when you are scared. Maya's voice grew stronger with each word, filled with a conviction that seemed to draw power from every human heart across the galaxy. The Vorthak felt the energy flowing through their connection and added its own voice to hers, speaking truths it had never been allowed to express. I have killed the warriors of 1,000 worlds, seen the last breaths of countless beings, but in all that time, I never witnessed what I see in this small human. She faced me with nothing but kindness when any rational creature would have fled. She saw pain in a monster and chose to heal rather than harm. The creature's 6 eyes fixed on each of the architects in turn, and its words carried the weight of eons of experience. You shaped me into a weapon because you believed that strength meant the power to destroy. But this child has shown me a strength far greater than any violence, the strength to love what others fear, to hope when others despair, to stand firm in compassion even when facing death. The cosmic beings found themselves struggling against something they had never encountered, doubt about their own infallibility. For eons, they had shaped reality according to their will, eliminating species they deemed unworthy without question. But now, faced with evidence that contradicted their judgment, their certainty began to crumble. Maya looked up at the Vorthak, then back at the architects, and made a decision that would echo through cosmic history. "I challenge your judgment," she declared, her 8-year-old voice carrying with the authority of absolute moral conviction. "You say humans are evil because you've only looked for evil. But I say you're wrong, and I'm going to prove it. Give humanity a chance to show you what we really are. Not just the wars and pollution and mistakes, but the love and hope and dreams that make us who we truly are." The arena fell silent as the implications of her challenge sank in. The architects had never been confronted by one of their test subjects before, had never been asked to defend their judgments or consider alternative perspectives. Zephyros pulsed with indignation. "You are a child of a species we have condemned. You have no right to challenge our cosmic authority." "Maybe not," Maya replied, still holding on to the Vorthak's leg for comfort and strength. "But I have the right to defend my family, my friends, and everyone else who deserves to live. And if you're really as wise and powerful as you think you are, then you should be willing to admit when you might be wrong." The simple logic of her words cut through cosmic pretensions like a knife. Around the arena, reality itself seemed to hold its breath, as the most powerful beings in the universe found themselves faced with a truth they couldn't deny. They had never actually tried to understand humanity, only to judge it. The Vorthak stepped forward, its massive frame radiating protective energy. "I will stand with her," it announced. "For eons, I served as your instrument of judgment, and in all that time, I learned only hatred and fear. In one day with this human child, I have learned more about the true nature of strength and courage than in all my previous existence." The creature's declaration sent shock waves through the cosmic hierarchy. Other beings they had shaped and controlled across the galaxies began to stir, influenced by the resonance of choice and defiance echoing from the arena. Maya felt the moment building towards something momentous, and she made one final appeal that would change everything. "I don't ask you to forget the bad things humans have done," she said, her voice steady despite the magnitude of what she faced. "But I ask you to see the whole picture. Yes, we make mistakes, sometimes terrible ones, but we also learn, we grow, we love, and we never stop trying to be better." She paused, thinking of all the humans across Earth who were going about their daily lives, unaware that their entire species hung in the balance. "We're not perfect, but we're not monsters either. We're just trying to figure things out. And maybe if you give us a chance, we can show you something beautiful." The arena filled with a light that had nothing to do with the twin suns overhead. It was the light of possibility, of hope given form, of a cosmic truth that had been waiting eons to be spoken. The architects found themselves changing, their certainty replaced by something they had forgotten in their eons of power, curiosity about perspectives other than their own. Slowly, carefully, Zephyros lowered his massive form closer to the arena floor. When he spoke, his voice carried a humility that surprised even himself. "Perhaps," he said, the words feeling strange after eons of absolute pronouncement, "we should observe more carefully before we judge." Maya smiled, the expression so bright and pure that it sent waves of healing energy through every scar on the Vorthak's hide. "Thank you," she said simply. "That's all I wanted. A chance." As the cosmic trial transformed into something unprecedented in universal history, Maya Chen, 8 years old and far from home, stood hand in hand with an ancient predator-turned-protector, and together they began to teach the oldest beings in the universe something they had forgotten. Sometimes the smallest voices carry the greatest truths, and the most powerful force in any cosmos is not the ability to destroy, but the courage to love unconditionally even in the face of the impossible. The trial was over, but for humanity, something far more important was just beginning. The chance to show the universe what they could become when someone believed in them enough to give them hope. Above them all, the twin suns set on an age of cosmic judgment and rose on an era of cosmic possibility, witnessed by a little girl who had dared to see light in the darkest places and love in the most broken hearts.